now we go to the first sutta. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, Monks, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said this, Monks, I will teach you dependent origination. Listen to that and attend closely. I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said this, and what, monks, is dependent origination? With ignorance as condition, avijja, volition comes to be. Here, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi has translated as volitional formations. Volitional formations. And later, you can see the traditional interpretation by the later monks is that volitional formation, sankhara here, means karma. But as I've said in my book, Dependent Origination, I don't agree with it. Later you will see why. So here, instead of translating it as volitional formations, which Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi uses, I would just say volition, sankhara. In fact, in the five aggregates, you also have sankhara there. And in the five aggregates means the five aggregates of a being, body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. So that is also basically body and mind. So because we take ourselves to be this body and this mind. So inside the five aggregates, you notice the fourth one is volition. And it's the same word, sankhara. So there it's mentioned to be volition. So here you can also call it volition, the same word, the same meaning. So with ignorance as condition, volition comes to be. With volition as condition, consciousness comes to be. With consciousness as condition, name and form, nama rupa, sometimes it's translated as mentality, materiality. With name and form as condition, the six sense bases, salayatana. With six sense bases as condition, contact, phassa. With contact as condition, feelings, vedana. With feeling as condition, craving, tanha. With craving as condition, clinging, upadana. With clinging as condition, existence, bhava. Here is translated as existence, but I think I prefer the word being. But never mind, for the moment, we continue as with existence as condition, birth, jati. With birth as condition, aging and death. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair come to be. This in Pali is jara, maranang, soka, parideva, dukkha, domana, supayasa. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. This monks is called dependent origination. I'll stop here for a moment. So here you see this whole chain of 12 links, dependent origination, is actually explaining the dependent origination of suffering. Because to untangle this mass of suffering, we have to understand where suffering comes from. So these 12 links is trying to explain where suffering comes from. You see the final link is called aging and dying, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. So this is the whole mass of suffering. Aging and sickening and dying, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, sometimes called grief and despair. So all this is suffering. So later you'll see when they explain backwards, the Buddha will ask, where does this aging and dying, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair come from? Comes from birth. Once you have birth, you must have aging and dying, etc. So it faces it the other way. So this is called dependent origination, and you always must remember when we say dependent origination, in the Buddha's teachings, it's always dependent origination of suffering to continue. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes cessation of volition. With the cessation of volition, cessation of consciousness. With the cessation of consciousness, cessation of name and form, nama-rupa, or mentality and materiality. With the cessation of mentality and materiality, cessation of the six sense bases. With the cessation of the six sense bases, cessation of contact. With the cessation of contact, cessation of feeling. With the cessation of feeling, cessation of craving. With the cessation of craving, cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging or attachment, cessation of existence, of being. With the cessation of being, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. This is what the Blessed One said. Elated those monks delighted in the Blessed One's statement. So here you see there are two ways of this dependent origination. The first one is the arising of suffering, and the other one, when he talks about cessation of each one of the links, is the cessation of suffering. Now we come to the 15th Sutta in this Nidana Samyutta at Savatthi. Then the Venerable Kachana Gota approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, it is said, right view, right view. In what way, Venerable Sir, is there right view? And the Buddha said, this world, Kachana, for the most part, depends upon the duality, upon the notion of existence and the notion of non-existence. Let's stop here for a moment. This in India at that time, most people either believe in the idea of existence or the idea of non-existence. This is another word for it, is a notion of existence. That means perpetual existence. That means eternalism view. That means when you die, you will continue to exist. And it's the same person who dies and is reborn. That is one extreme view. The other extreme view is non-existence. It's the annihilationist view. That once a person dies, there is no more rebirth. There is no more existence. So these two views the Buddha does not accept because it assumes or presumes that a self exists. That a self exists. So they argue whether after death that self continues to exist or the self does not continue to exist. But in the Buddhist teaching, this self is just a concept in our mind that nature has planted in our mind to make us strive to fight for survival. And then the Buddha continued. But for one who sees the origin of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, there is no notion of non-existence in regard to the world. And for one who sees the cessation of the world as it really is with correct wisdom, there is no notion of existence in regard to the world. This world, Kachana, is for the most part shackled by engagement, clinging and adherence. But this one with right view does not become engaged and cling through that engagement and clinging, mental standpoint, adherence, underlying tendency. He does not take a stand about myself. He has no perplexity or doubt that what arises is only suffering arising. What ceases is only suffering ceasing. His knowledge about this is independent of others. It is in this way, Kachana, that there is right view. All exists, Kachana, this is one extreme. All does not exist, this is the second extreme. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata teaches the Dhamma by the middle. With ignorance as condition, volition comes to be. With volition as condition, consciousness etc., etc. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes cessation of volition. With the cessation of volition, cessation of consciousness, etc., etc. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. So the Buddha says that the Buddha's way of seeing is not whether a self exists after death or not, but everything is due to conditions. This world, everything in this world is conditionally arisen, dependently arisen, dependent on conditions. .20 at Savatthi. Monks, I will teach you dependent origination and dependently arisen phenomena. Listen and attend closely. I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, the monks replied. And what monks is dependent origination? With birth as condition, aging and death comes to be. Whether there is an arising of Tathagatas or no arising of Tathagatas, that element still persists. The stableness of the Dhamma, the fixed cause of the Dhamma, specific conditionality. A Tathagata awakens to this and breaks through to it. Having done so, he explains it, teaches it, proclaims it, establishes it, discloses it, analyzes it, elucidates it. And he says, see, with birth as condition, monks, aging and death. With existence as condition, birth. With clinging as condition, existence. With craving as condition, clinging. With feeling as condition, craving. With contact as condition, feeling. With the six sense basis as condition, contact. Mentality, materiality as condition, the six sense basis. With consciousness as condition, mentality and materiality. With volition as condition, consciousness. With ignorance as condition, volition. Whether there is an arising of Tathagatas or no arising of Tathagatas, the element still persists, the stableness of the Dhamma, the fixed cause of the Dhamma, specific conditionality. The Tathagata awakens to this and breaks through to it. Having done so, he explains it, teaches it, proclaims it, establishes it, discloses it, analyzes it, elucidates it, and he says, see, with ignorance as condition, monks, volition. Thus, monks, the actuality in this, the inerrancy, the not otherwiseness, specific conditionality, this is called dependent origination. And what monks are the dependently arisen phenomena? Aging and death, monks, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, vanishing, fading away and cessation. Similarly, birth is impermanent, existence is impermanent, clinging is impermanent, craving is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, contact is impermanent, six sense bases are impermanent, mentality, materiality is impermanent, consciousness is impermanent, volition is impermanent, ignorance is impermanent, condition dependently arisen, subject to destruction, vanishing, fading away and cessation. These monks are called dependently arisen phenomena. When monks, a noble disciple has clearly seen with correct wisdom, as it really is, this dependent origination and these dependently arisen phenomena, it is impossible that he will run back into the past, thinking, did I exist in the past? Did I not exist in the past? What was I in the past? How was I in the past? Having been what did I become in the past? Or that he will run forward into the future, thinking, will I exist in the future? Will I not exist in the future? What will I be in the future? How will I be in the future? Having been what will I become in the future? Or that he will now be inwardly confused about the present, thus, do I exist? Do I not exist? What am I? How am I? This being, where has it come from? And where will it go? For what reason is this impossible? Because monks, the noble disciple has clearly seen with correct wisdom, as it really is, this dependent origination and these dependently arisen phenomena. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says, whether Buddhas arise in the world or Buddhas do not arise, the fixed law of Dhamma is always there. Whether Buddha is here to explain it to us or Buddha is not here to explain it to us, we are all bound by these laws of the Dhamma. Dhamma is just about reality, the truth about existence. It's just that the Buddha has become enlightened. He has seen through all this, so he explains it to us. But whether he does explain or he does not explain, we are all bound by all these laws of the Dhamma, or the laws of the universe. So among them is this dependent origination, that suffering arises because of these conditions. And these conditions, the Buddha says, all are impermanent, dependently arisen. That means suffering itself, birth itself, being, clinging, craving, all this is impermanent. So because it is impermanent, it can change. So if we understand how to dismantle these 12 links, then we are freed from the round of rebirths. So in the end, the Buddha says, if a person understands the Dhamma and sees that everything is dependently arisen, then he will not speculate about himself in the past or in the future and all that. He's only concerned with the here and now. But most people, because we don't understand the Dhamma, we are all concerned about the past, the present, and all our the future and all the things in the world that we think are I and mine. All the things that belong to us, we think we cannot let go. But actually, the Buddha says nothing actually belongs to us. We came empty-handed and we'll be going off empty-handed. Even this body does not belong to us. How can anything belong to us when this body itself also doesn't belong to us?